Hello everyone, this is Prem Kumar. In this video, I'm going to talk everything about the logs, like the loggers, the log files and the log categories. Okay, first, why do we need the logs? Logs really helps with the debugging. Like whenever there is some kind of error, it is always good that if our application logs some entry so that we can go to the log files and check the logs. If we have the stack trace, then it is very easy to find. We can just trace back and find that what is the exact root cause for the issue. So whenever there is an error, the first place where you can go to is the log files. Now let's see how Pega uses the log files. For every application, whatever technology it may be, they may need to choose some logging framework. So logging framework, what it does is, it standardizes the process of logging in the application. Standardize in the sense, what I meant is, you can have a special format. You can have a special location where you always put the files. And you can also have some kind of criteria or logging level, that's what technically we say, to determine what type of log should go into which files or what type of log entries should we actually capture. Should we capture only the error log entries or do we need to capture also the informational log entries? All these can be standardized. So definitely we have to choose some kind of logging framework, and the logs are totally independent of the source code. It means all you have to do is just create some logger objects, and logger object will take care of everything. They have their own engine code to take care of all the loggings. So when your application performs, loggers will be at the side capturing some kind of log messages. It can be informational, it can be debug, it can be also be error. So there are three main components of a logging framework. The first component is the logger. So logger is the one who is going to capture the error message. So if you really want to trace some actions or do some debugging, you can very well add your own loggers. So loggers will always capture the message, and format, from the name itself we can say we can have some special formats for each message. Maybe you can have the timestamp, maybe the user who logged in the message. There are different kinds of formats which you can use, and finally you can use the appender to put your log messages into some kind of files. So that it will be persisted into some location. You can very well go into the location, get the log file, and then from there you can go into the log file and debug the timestamp. You can easily find out at which timestamp what happened, and there you will mostly get the root cause of the issue. So these are the three main components which we need to know for the logging framework. Now, what logging framework does Pega uses? Pega uses this log4j logging framework. So each of the framework, they have different types of logging levels, and for log4j, you see here, this is the logging level which log4j provides. So first, what is a logging level? Let's take out some of the events. There can be different events in the application, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say you are running some kind of extraction, some BIX extraction. Now if you run a BIX extraction, normally if it's complete, we can get some kind of informational message saying that the BIX extraction completed. So that is like an informational message, right? Now let's say if the same BIX extract, it takes more than the estimated time, then what you can do is we can generate some kind of alert saying that okay, some threshold is crossed, right? There can be some kind of alert messages. Now the next thing is, if the BIX is taking too much resource from the server in which the BIX is running, then you can also have some kind of warn messages, the warning messages, throwing that it is using this kind of memory, it has crossed this kind of memory. This can also be little alert, but you can also warn. You can also send some kind of warn messages. Now let's say the BIX failed. The BIX failed to do the extraction into some kind of tables. Maybe the extract rule has some error or some table has some errors. So BIX extraction totally failed. The process failed. Now here you can send some error message saying that BIX extraction failed. So this can be like an error message. Now finally, let's say the database totally crashed down. The BIX extraction, maybe the server crashed down. So these can be like a fatal error. This is more than an error, it's like a fatal error. So there can be definitely some kind of fatal messages, right? And finally, we also have one more log level called debug. If you really want to do some kind of debugging, you can very well use the debug log levels. So what does this actually mean? Why you have this kind of stack here? It all starts from all, and then you keep on going till the off. So let me start from the top. Let's say if I have the log level as off for specific logger. We know that loggers are going to capture the logs, right? Now, if I set a logging level for one specific logger, let's take an example of BIX logger. If I say for BIX logger, the logging level is off, it means it is never going to log any message. whatever error can be. It can be a fatal error or it can be just an informational message. There is no log message is going to enter for that logger. And mostly we will not have this logging level for any of the loggers. But in rare situation, if you really want to switch off some of the logging levels, you can very well do that. All you have to do is just go to the logger and then change the logging level to off. Now the next thing is fatal. For the Bix logger, if you change the logging level to fatal, it is going to log only the fatal messages. It is not even going to log the error message, only the fatal message. So it will log only the fatal message and all the levels above. It means above fatal we don't have any specific log levels. So it is going to log only the fatal. Now if I set for the same Bix extraction, if I set the log level as error, then it is going to log two types of log messages. It can log the error message definitely because we set it to that level, and then it will also check if there is some other levels that are higher than that. We have fatal. So fatal messages also will be logged into the log files. So this is how the logging levels work. Now if I enable the logger for the Bix extraction to the debug mode, what are the log entries can be logged? Debug definitely, and all the levels above the debug. As you can see from the picture, it is going to log the informational, the warning, the error, fatal, everything will be logged. That is why when we go for debugging, it is recommended to change the log level of the loggers to debug so that we capture all the messages that will help with the debugging. So not only we need only the error message, right? We also need to know the success message so that we can really point out exactly till where it went success and from where it went failed. So logging level is a key criteria, and I will also show you how to change the logging level for an existing logger. Now enough of the introduction. Let's go to Business Studio. Let's try to find out more about this logging. So here I have logged in into the Business Studio. Now the first thing is, let's see where we can find the log files. Already by default, Pega has some kind of default configurations. So it is going to keep on adding some log entries. It can be informational, it can be error. Now let's find out where we can access the log files. It will be on the configure, system, operation, and then logs. This landing page may little vary per version. Currently I am into 8.7. That is why I see the log level settings as disabled. Okay, first let's look into the log files. If you click on the log files, what you get here is you will get some links. You also get the location links, right? It is under my personal edition Tomcat work directory. I have all the files are persisted into my local directory into which the server is running. So definitely in production environment, in real-time environment, you will have some kind of path location. It can be your server path location where you persist the log files. You see here different appenders are there, right? So all these appenders, they have their own job to do. For example, the Pega logs, they will have all the Pega logs. The normal info force Pega logs till the error Pega logs. And alert messages. Bix, we have a dedicated appender or dedicated file only to store all the Bix logs. And then we have mobile logs. So mobile related thing will be there. And then data flow related thing. So we can have our own custom log files also. At the end of this video, I will also show you how to create a new custom log file. So if you want to look into the log file very well, you can click on the link. There you will get a harness or a view where you can look into the different log entries that are into the log file. So you can also go here and check how many lines, how many pages you want, and then you can also filter based on your name. So these are the log entries that are made by my name. If you see here, these are the log entries that are done today. And if you want to look for the entire log entries that happened into this server, you can just remove the name so that if you apply, you will find all the log entries irrespective of who generated the logs. I can see there are 3 pages of logs, and I also see there is some kind of error is happening. So that is well and good because we can see that error is also getting captured into the log files. So by this way, you can very well use the log files. So this is more like little user friendly, but you can very well directly go to the log file, download the log file, and then open it into any of your editor. For example, if you launch this log file, you can either zip it, because sometimes when you work with Pega system supports, mostly they will ask you to give you the log files. So you can very well download it and zip it and send to them. So you can choose to download whether a text file or a zip file. So this is one way. Now the next thing is we can also access directly the log files into the server location. So where do it get stored? You already find the link here. So let's navigate to the link PRPC Personal Edition Tomcat work directory. So I'm into the C drive PRPC and then Tomcat, and then I have it work directory Catalina, localhost, and then PR web. There you find all the log files. As I told, there is a Pega log file, security event is there, alert is there, data flow is there. All these log files are getting updated frequently. So whenever there is some log message gets generated, it will be persisted into this file. So someone is definitely writing the log entries into these files. If you want, you can really open these files. I'm going to open with my Visual Studio Code. So there you can also find all these log messages. You can very well use this to some kind of easily navigate between the log messages. There are other tools also that helps with reading these log files. For example, we have the PLA tool, Pega Log Analyzer tool. I'm not going to explain much about the tool, but you have it into the marketplace. If you download it and install any of the log files into it, you will get some kind of summary report. You can also generate an Excel out of it to get the view like how many alerts are generated, what type of alerts are getting generated. So PLA you can use very well often, but I would also recommend you to use the Pega's Diagnostic Cloud, the PDC. Before the end of this video, I will explain how PDC works, what type of agents helps with sending the data from a Pega application into the PDC. Just let's wait for it. So now you understood that we have log files. We can always access the log files. Now the next question is, how do these log files are getting these values? How someone is entering some data into these log files? That is via the loggers. Pega has already lot of loggers defined. So how do you define your own logger? We can check it out. So first, to define a logger, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a new simple activity. Here I will add few steps. Now, if you want to debug this activity, you need to have the logger for this, right? So activity, generally it generates some kind of loggers for you. To find the loggers, you can go to View Java and then just scroll little down. There you will find a logger is there. So you see an object is created for the log helper class, and copy this. So this will be your logger name. Don't think that this will be automatically created. Still it didn't get created, but we can very well add this logger. So how to add a logger now? This is the main step. So to add a logger, before in the older versions, you can very well use this option, log level settings, but you can see the description here. This link has been moved to the admin studio. So we have to go to admin studio, and there we can enable the log level settings. And also you see it will affect all the nodes in the environment. So you don't want to worry about going into each of the server. If you have multi-node environment, you don't want to go to each of the server and do the change. You can just apply it at one place. It will be automatically applied. Now let's go to the admin studio, resources, log categories. I think in few of the previous videos, I already explained about how to use these log categories. But now I'll quickly show you how to add some loggers. You cannot directly add individual loggers. Definitely it should be going under the log categories. So that is why you see already lot of existing categories. So what is log category exactly meant? Log category, from the name itself, we can say it can group the log files. For example, if you see here, we have lot of log categories already defined by Pega. If I go to the logs page, there I have already created, or I have already opened few of the log entries. For example, if you check PX Bigs, that is Pega's out of the box created log category. If I open this PX Bigs, I can see here there is only one logger defined, that is under com Pega rules. These are all engine classes, engine Java classes. So Pega uses this. This is the primary logger for the Bigs, the extract implementation, and it classified it as a Bigs logger. Now if you just scroll little up, we have something called REST and SOAP. We already saw this during the REST and SOAP module. We have these kind of categories already defined. So we don't want to worry about if you have some issues with the REST or SOAP. You don't want to worry that what type of logger should I use to debug. Already they have the log categories, but only thing they have the log level as error. If you want to do some testing, you have to change the log level. First, let's look into the category of REST. If you look at the category of REST, already they add a lot of loggers. So this is definitely going to help you. So if you enable it into debug mode, then definitely if you test some kind of REST service, you will get all the steps that happens at the backend. And if there is some error, you can easily find it out. Okay, now we know that we can have log categories, and inside the log categories, we can define the loggers. Now let's create a new log category and then include the loggers which we just created before by using an activity. So go to actions, create log category, and then just I'm going to say log demo for now, because this is just a demo dummy activity. Now you can say log demo again in the description. Now the main thing is you have to add loggers for the log category. Now let's add the logger. All you have to do is put the right logger class here and then you do a submit. Mostly if the logger is already created, then it is going to list you. Otherwise you can very well add the new logger. What I meant here is, for example, if I say OAuth, you can already see some of the loggers were already there, right? So these were already added or already created. You can always include those into your log categories. But if you are creating for the very first time, you can very well use this option and then do a submit. Pega will automatically create the logger so that next time when it gets executed, the logger is going to capture everything. Now do a submit. So what happened is we created a new log category. In turn, it means like we added some of the loggers. Now let's look at the logging level for the recently added loggers. If you go to the last page, usually the recently added log categories will be at the very end. So you see here the log demo, right? This is the one which we added. And you see the default log level is error. So that by default Pega makes it to error. And the current log level is also error. Now what we can do is we can change the current log level to debug mode. How to do that? Use this option, change log level. So here you can change it to debug so that you get all the info messages, warn messages, error messages, fatal messages, alert messages, every messages you can get. So you can very well use this debug and then you can also reset. So these are all some new features which Pega introduced. So here you can reset in 2 hours. The main reason is sometimes for debugging you may enable a logger into debug mode. Then you may never change it back to the real mode. So what happens is a lot of log entries will be logging or flooding those log files. So ideally what we can do is we can use the reset option. Mostly we will be debugging maybe 1 or 2 hours. So Pega asks us to use the reset in hours. So automatically Pega will apply the reset. So you don't want to worry about this. So I will use this 2 hours as the reset here. And then you can also do some kind of filtering, like to which operator you should apply, to which rule type. If you specify a rule, then you can specify to which class, which activity you need to apply these changes. For now, I don't have such filter criteria. If you really want to look for one particular operator, very well you can use this option. But for now, I just want to use for all the operator. Only thing which I want to do is I want to reset it in 2 hours and the log level is going to be debug mode. Now do a submit. Now if you see in the first page, the first entry log demo, the current level is debug and it is going to reset exactly after 2 hours of my current time. So now our logger is ready, it is into the debug mode, so it is ready to capture all the log messages or all the messages that gets logged by an activity. Okay, now let's go to the Dev Studio and let's try to execute this activity. I'm just going to run this activity and see if there is some kind of log messages are getting printed. Just execute it. Now if I go to log files and then check the Pega logs, I already see some steps were there. You can see here the debug message is there. There is 2 kinds of debug message and then what it says is running step 1, running step 2. Just give me that I'm running the step 1 and step 2. I don't have any specific event there. It is just creating a page. It is just doing a property set. If there is some kind of error, definitely I'm going to get those here. So by this way, you can know that what is really happening. If you add some kind of debug mode, every step you can get a log entry there. Then you will know like these are all going success, 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 and suddenly you will get a boom failure there. So that you can easily find it out. So by this way, you can just add loggers and then capture the log messages. You can very well create your own log categories, add some loggers into the log categories and then change the log level for the entire log category. And before you create any new log category, make sure you search if there is some kind of existing log category already exists. If in that case you don't want to create a new logger, just change the existing loggers logging level for the debug to try to debug your logs. So these are the messages which Pega uses and Pega captures it, right? Now how do we push our own messages? Definitely we can push our own messages because in activity we have a method log message. So if I want to log a message, I can very well use this. I can use this method of log message and here I can also set the logging level at this place. So let me say there is some kind of error happened. I can just print out a message or I can use a message rule and then I can say the logging level. So logging level, if I say error, then it is going to put an error entry there. I can also generate a stack trace if there is some kind of processing, and if you want to know more details about this log, you can very well generate the stack trace. So it will really pinpoint you exactly where the error happened. So this is one way of pushing the log message directly. So mostly you will use this step when you have some kind of OBJ step, like you are trying to open a case, and if the case does not exist, you can do the error handling, you can log an entry so that some error happened is persisted into the log files. So in future, definitely if you debug, if you use the log files, then you can get that, okay, some error happened at this place. This is also applicable for the connectors, the connections which we make external system to get the data. Mostly it is recommended to have a log entry if there is some kind of error. Okay, now let me run this. Let me run, check the log files. Pega log files, yeah. So here you see there is an error happened. See the same message which we printed. So these two are debug levels. Finally, we forced a log message of level error, and then we gave the message also here. Since this doesn't have any kind of stack trace, it is not found. But in real time, when there is a real issue happened, then generating stack trace will give you the entire stack trace into the log file. And also just don't always use the generate stack trace. Again, it is going to flood or it's going to occupy a lot of space in the log files. So only in situation when you want to generate the stack trace to debug more into it, then you can use that option. Now we know that for debug, we can use the loggers, change the loggers. And if you want to have your own messages, like if you want to handle some kind of exceptions, you can very well use the log message method. Okay, now I think you got some enough idea about how to use a logger and log categories. I want to add one more thing to this log message method. To do that, what I have to do is I will go to the admin studio and then just reset the loggers. You can reset the log demo logger alone, or you can just reset everything. Reset to default, it's going to reset all the log categories which you used for debugging back to the original mode. So if you now refresh and then go to the last page where we created, you see log demo, they have the log level as error. Now that you will not get any kind of debug messages. Now if you go to the dev studio, and here I just change the logging level to info. I'm not having that error, I'm just having it as info. What I want to show you is, if you run this, now let's see if this info message is getting captured into the log files. Do a run. Now go to the log files and then check here. We don't see a new log entry here. All these log entries are like when we resetted, you see the last message is also the category reset. We don't have our own log message here, right? Even if you run multiple times, all these info level messages are not getting printed. If you just change it to warning, error, it is going to get printed, but only the info messages are not getting printed by default. If you use the log message, if you use info, it's not getting printed. So what you can do is you can use info forced. If you just use this one and try to run it, info force is a kind of special method. So if you want to forcefully insert the information message, you can use that. Now if you go to the log files and check, you will have the message there because we did an info forced. That is why you see error happened is printed here. Now you may get a question, what is the main difference? Who determines this? Why info messages are not getting printed into the Pega's log files? All these configurations stay within the log4j XML file. Let's check the XML file now. If you go to the directory, the Pega personal edition directory, and then just follow the path, go to web apps, prweb, webinf, classes, and then you have prlog4j2. Just open it in your editor. So here I have opened the file and let's look at the content of this file. You see here it has a configurations. A lot of appenders are getting added. As you can see under the appenders we have different appenders are getting added. We have an appender of name Pega. We have an appender of name alert. Let's first collapse all these appenders. So we have an appender here and then we have a loggers here. So these are the two main blocks of the log4j2 XML file. We have a set of appenders, we have a set of loggers. Let's start with the loggers. And under the loggers, we have some appender reference. So it refers to some of the appenders. There you have console, you have Pega, you have alert security. If you look specially into this alert and alert security, already they have some kind of level defined. Because alert message, definitely you need to have only those alert entries there, right? So they have already filtered that. They're going to look only on the alert messages, especially with the alert security also. It's more security related, but they're also going to have the level as alert. Okay, now you may get a question. Alert is also having the alert messages. Alert security is also having the alert message. This looks like little bit filtering, but what is the real filtering happen? How does Pega differentiates the alert with the alert security? To check that, you can go to the appender, the specific appender for alert and alert security. Now let's collapse this and let's expand the appender and just scroll down to find the name of alert and alert security. If you go here also you have some kind of filter defined. For example, for the alert security, you see on match it accepts when the alert type equal to security. Whereas for the alert file, it always denies on match. So when the alert type equal to security, only the alert security file it accepts and all other it denies. But the alert file, it does the other way around. When the alert type is security, it denies it so that it goes into the alert security. And for all other thing, it just accepts it. All the alert related logs will go into this log file. So definitely into this appender, you can add some kind of filter. Now let's get back to the Pega file and just check the filter what was added there. You can see here, there is a threshold filter. There is a level of alert. You can add a threshold filter, but you can also do other things. Like in the appender, you can generate the file format. If you look at here, you see the Pega log directory, and then it creates the file under this name Pega rules.log. If you go to the log file location, there you find it is Pega rules.log, right? So if you go to the other things, you will find Pega rules-alert.log. You'll also find the same thing, Pega rules-alert.log. So definitely a log file name you can determine into the appender. And then it also says what type of pattern you want to have. If you want to kind of do some kind of archive, you want to have month, date, year, right? So definitely this also will be there. If you look at the older dates, for example, today is 28 Sunday, and if I want to check the yesterday's log files, I can very well check that. I can see here 27/8. So these are all kind of zipped one, the archived one, that also you can configure here. And by default, this will be the current today's date. And once it is done, then it is going to get zipped and put it into with the timestamp. And then what you have? Here you have the pattern layout. It says like which Pega thread, which tenant ID, which application, which stack, which requester ID. So what I meant here is, so if you look at the error message, there you will have the pattern layout defined. If I go back here and see, the first pattern layout is on the timestamp. As you can see T here, right? This reference to timestamp. So you see a timestamp here. The next is on the Pega thread. So it is printing out a Pega thread. You can also see the job scheduler thread which is running. And then if you come here, it shows the tenant ID, the application, the requester ID, everything is there. So it will just go ahead and see if there is some kind of tenant ID, if there is some kind of requester ID is there, it is going to print. So if I look at my message, definitely I will have my requester ID printed there. So all these patterns, like what type of error message, what should be the message pattern, we can decide it here. And finally you see the message here. So that is where the message is getting printed. So for each message you have a pattern, a set of values that get prepended into the message. And then we looked into the filters already and policies, like how frequent you want to roll the log files. You can have two types of policies. Either you can have time-based rolling policy or you can have size-based rolling policy. Here it was like 250 MB. Let's say if you are doing a lot of log file entries, you cannot have a log file of having 1 GB of file size. So it will be very difficult to load and it's not good to debug a big file, right? So you can have two types of rolling. You can have the size. So here it is said like 250 MB. So if the log file, if it reaches the 250 MB and if it tries to cross the 250 MB, the older files will be archived. So it means a new log file will be created and the entries will be made into the new log file. So this is one way. The other way is you can also have time-based trigger policy. If you want to roll it every day, you can very well use that option. Okay, I don't want to make it more advanced topic because it may be little difficult if you are starting as a beginner, but just try to understand that we can create our own log files. Okay, now you know how the files are getting generated. How the content of the file is decided, that is based on the filter criteria which we define. But also in the loggers, we can have our own loggers. For example, if you see for the bigs, we already saw whatever log messages that get generated by this logger will always get appended into the bigs. So by this way, if you want to have your own logger, so if your logger is generating lot of log messages, you don't want to put it into the Pega rules log file. What you can do is you can create a new appender and then you can decide your own file name. You can have your new file name. Just copy paste the existing appender and make it as a new appender. Just change everything. And then you specify the logger here. Come here and then specify what type of logger and what type of info level. Like all the info messages, I have to print it into the appender. So in the appender, we will decide what type of log file it is. So this is how you can create a new log file. You can have some specific loggers go into the new log file. So this is just an advanced topic, so I don't want to go much in detail explaining you how to exactly create a new log file and show you. It is going to take a lot of time, but just understand that it is totally possible. If you really want to know the step by step, you can look into my blog post where I explain how to create a new log file. Okay, before ending this video, I would like to talk about the PDC, the Pega Diagnostic Cloud Monitoring. Before, in the older versions, when we were like Pega 6, Pega 7, I worked in projects where we ship our data into AES. AES is like an on-premise version which can help with monitoring. It is nothing but a Pega application. So we have to send our data from our application to the Pega application. So how does that happen? How do we send all the statistics of your DB, of your server, of your application? Everything needs to be sent to some kind of different application. So what Pega does is, Pega has some kind of out-of-the-box agent, the AES remote agent, that will help with sending out all the events from the Pega application into either AES application or to PDC application. So you can also send your data to the PDC application. PDC currently I cannot show you because my PDC is currently tagged to my client, so I cannot go there and show you how a PDC looks. But you can also very well look into some kind of Pega systems videos, like how you can use the PDI to effectively monitor your application. PDC, I really say it's a very good tool, a very good implementation from Pega where you can look into different aspects. Like you can look into the events, you can look into the top 5 issues, the performance issues. You can also track your database performance as well as the server performance. So there is some kind of setup you need to do before you connect to PDC so that you can ship all your data into PDC and then you log in into PDC to check the report of your log files. Okay, I will end this video here. I hope you got a lot of information about how to use a log categories. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the clipboard. See you in the next video.